Hello, everyone. Welcome into your weekly weather briefing provided by the National Weather Service in Atlanta. My name is Brett Albright, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I will be your guide to the weather forecast for the next 7 days. Here's a look at the hazard outlook for north and central Georgia through next Wednesday. The first thing you should notice is that between today and Sunday, we have a low risk of hazardous weather. That is primarily being driven by scattered shower and thunderstorm activity that is expected across the region. Those storms should be most intense on Friday and Saturday, and on Friday, there will be a slight threat for flooding, especially across parts of central and east central Georgia. As we move into Sunday and Monday, a strong cold front will move through the region. That'll bring our first real push of dry air for the fall season. That air will lead to much lower humidities as well as cooler temperatures next week and should make for some very nice evenings. All right, let's take a look at the weather pattern through the next 7 days, beginning with today. Out there right now, we have a front draped across Georgia, as well as Hurricane Erin currently spinning off the east coast of the United States. That front will be the focal point for shower and thunderstorm activity later today. As we move into the Friday, Erin will continue to move out into the open Atlantic, but that front will remain draped across Georgia. The front itself will be interacting with a significant amount of tropical moisture, and that will lead to a flash flood threat, especially across parts of central and east central Georgia. For Saturday, the front finally shifts down into southern Georgia. However, tropical moisture will remain elevated across most of the state. This should lead to scattered shower and thunderstorm activity just about anywhere in Georgia. That activity will be most intense in the afternoon, and any flood threat with it will probably be dictated by how much rain fell Friday night. As we move into Sunday, we'll be watching the next frontal boundary that will be approaching from the Midwest. It should be on our doorstep by late in the day on Sunday and will move through during the overnight hours. Ahead of that front, scattered showers and thunderstorms will continue across most of the state, with the majority of the activity expected across the mountains and in east central Georgia. For Monday, the cold front will sweep through, and this will bring a significant change in humidity across most of the region. North and central Georgia should see their dew points fall down into the 50s as the day progresses. This will lead to very nice conditions in the evening, and it will also lead to our first totally dry day for the region for quite some time. As we move into Tuesday, that front will continue to progress south, and high pressure will build across the central part of the United States. This will continue to funnel cooler and drier air into Georgia, keeping us rain-free and our humidity suppressed. The same story will be with us on Wednesday as high pressure shifts towards Missouri and Illinois. The airflow around the high pressure will keep us dry, with humidity being low. All right, let's take a break from the pattern and look at some of the hazardous weather conditions that could occur as we go into the next couple of days. Here's the look at where we could see flash flooding today, albeit this is only a marginal or level 1 risk, pretty much anywhere in the state. Flash flooding today will mainly be driven by high rain rates associated with thunderstorms that will be moving slowly, and the overall risk for flooding in any area is only about 5% within 25 miles. The flood risk is slightly higher across the mountains of northeast Georgia due to multiple days of heavy rainfall that have fallen across the region. Let's jump to Friday. This is the day when we have the greatest risk of flooding in the region. We have a slight chance, or about a 15% chance within 25 miles of a given point, for areas of east central and central Georgia. That risk will peak during the 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. window, so this will be mostly a late afternoon to overnight threat in the area, as thunderstorms sort of develop and congeal into a larger system. Isolated rain totals in excess of 3 inches and possibly up to 5 inches could occur, especially in the yellow shaded region. For Saturday, a flash flood threat will linger in the region because of abundant tropical moisture. We'll lose the front on this day, and this gives us less certainty in exactly where the heaviest rainfall will occur. That said, depending on how much rain falls on Friday, especially across parts of central Georgia, but to a lesser degree in North Georgia, there could be an increase in the risk of flooding. So it's just something to monitor that we may have to bump this up to a slight for some areas, depending on what the antecedent conditions are. So basically soil moisture. All right. That's enough about the flooding threat. Let's jump into kind of what we're going to see next week, which can probably be summed up with just some of the nicest weather we've enjoyed for quite some time. That being said, as the front moves through Sunday into Monday, we are going to see a significant decrease in humidity, and that'll drive a large drop in instability. We need that instability to drive thunderstorm formation, especially during the afternoons. From the graph here, you can see that we have quite a bit of instability hanging around over the weekend. It could even linger into parts of the day on Monday, although it will be declining rapidly as the day progresses. As we get into Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and perhaps even as far out as next weekend, we'll have little to no instability around the region because conditions will be so dry. This should greatly inhibit any rainfall chances or any potential for thunderstorms for most of next week. Thus, at this time, we're expecting most of next week to be dry. Let's break that down a little bit further. Here's a look at your temperature and dew point forecast through about August 28th or so well into next week. Looking at this, you can see that over the weekend, our dew points will be quite high, averaging low to mid 70s across much of the region. But you can see that fall between Sunday and Monday as the front comes in and drier air begins to push in from the northwest. There's some uncertainty in the timing of exactly when that will occur, but pretty much all models agree that it is going to fall next week. By Tuesday, widespread dew points in the 50s are expected across most of the region, especially during the day. This should greatly reduce the amount of humidity that you feel heading outside and make for really nice evenings if you're heading outdoors or you have activities planned. Temperatures will decline, although it won't be quite as dramatic as the declines in dew points next week. Look for highs potentially in the low 80s or maybe in a few spots, especially across North Georgia and definitely in the mountains, that will top out in the 70s as we get to the middle part of next week. We'll swap that over now and let's compare that dew point outlook that we were looking at on the prior slide with our forecast for precipitation through the next 7 days. Note that we have pretty high chances of rainfall in there over the weekend, peaking at around 71% for the region on Friday. Those remain high Saturday as well at 64 and decline slightly on Sunday at an average of about 46%. Then that front comes through and you can see precipitation chances really take a nosedive, down to around 1 to about 10% through at least the middle of next week. All right, let's look even further than the middle part of next week and look out into next weekend and beyond. Here's your 6 to 10 day outlook for precipitation and temperature across the lower 48. The first thing that will stand out here is the giant blue blob for temperature, showing a very strong lean towards below average temperatures across most of the eastern United States as we get into the latter part of August. This is due largely to a large trough of low pressure that will develop this weekend over the Great Lakes in eastern Canada and remain firmly in place next week. Meanwhile, for precipitation, there really aren't any strong indicators of what we're going to have here, indicating about near normal as we get towards the latter part of next week. That being said, the rain chances are much higher across the western part of the country, where troughing and multiple storm systems moving through the region should favor rainfall. As we jump to the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, we do see that the lean towards below average temperatures does weaken a little bit in the forecast. Overall, though, we still favor below average temperatures across Georgia as we move into the first few days of September. Looking at rainfall, again, not much of a good signal here for us in this state. Still pretty much split equally between normal, above normal, and near normal. Although there is a very small lean of a couple percent towards slightly above average precipitation. I wouldn't take this one with too much of excitement because it will probably be something close to normal. Okay, with that, we'll jump ahead to the tropics. Here's a current outlook from the National Hurricane Center in terms of what we have out there. Conditions are quite active right now, a real uptick from what we saw earlier in the season. We do have Hurricane Aaron, which has been with us now for a week or more, Turning off the coast of the Carolinas, it's not a threat to the U.S., and it will continue into the open ocean over the next few days. There are three more areas of interest out there, ranging in the likelihood of development from anywhere above 60% to less than 40%. The noteworthy one there is probably the one highlighted in red in the center at greater than 60% chance. We'll talk about that more in a minute, but it does look like this system will probably trend towards another similar track to what Aaron saw in terms of staying out in the open ocean if it does develop. Okay, I mentioned Aaron a couple times. Let's just give a brief status on where that is. So right now, Hurricane Aaron is off the coast of the Carolinas. It is continuing. It's now being picked up by the broader flow in the atmosphere and being kicked out into the Atlantic. As we move into next week, it'll degrade in strength sometime by the time it exits around Nova Scotia out into the true open Atlantic down to a tropical storm as it weakens. No additional impacts from Aaron are expected besides the high surf and stuff along the eastern United States, and certainly not for Georgia. I mentioned it before with all those active systems that we have or areas to watch out in the Atlantic right now. But here's the pattern that we have for next week. It's worth noting, and we've talked about it a couple times, that we have a large trough developing over the eastern U.S. during the work week next week. That will provide steering flow that will basically protect us here in the lower 48. Any systems that approach will get picked up by the broader flow around that low and a high out in the central Atlantic. This should kick them out into the Atlantic along a similar track to what Aaron took. So at least through the end of next week, and perhaps even a little bit further into the first few days of September, the lower 48, Gulf Coast, all that should be protected from tropical development or any tropical impacts. Now, looking ahead in the longer range tropical outlook, so here we're looking August 27th through September 9th. We can see in the first section there, which is August 27th through about September 2nd, really the only areas favored for tropical development remain off the coast of Africa. So right about in this region right here. But as we shift later into about the second week or so of September, give or take, we do start to see the potential for more activity in the Caribbean, the Gulf, or perhaps more into the central Atlantic there. This would be about when that trough along the eastern U.S. will be breaking down. So if we're looking for when the next tropical impacts could be in the United States, we're probably looking right now at sometime in September, that being probably the second week of September or so, or a little bit further on. That's all I have for the briefing today. Again, if you need any additional information from us, you're welcome to reach out to us by phone or via email, or you can check online at our website at weather.gov. You can also follow us on any of our social media accounts for the latest forecast updates and graphics. Thanks for tuning in today.